Hi guys, yasas que to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making lamb stifado in the Instant Pot. You don't have to make it in the Instant Pot, but it will cut the time by at least 30-40 minutes. So if you have one or if you have a pressure cooker, go ahead and take it out and use it for this recipe. Lamb stifado is basically a lamb stew that is very aromatic because it is flavored with cinnamon and allspice berries and just so many delicious flavors. And then it also has either pearl onions or shallots. So it's very rich, cozy, and delicious and perfect for a cold winter's day. Let's get started. So you're gonna need about 4 to 5 pounds of lamb. I like to use leg of lamb and it's cut up into small pieces so that way it just cooks evenly and easily. But you can use any cut of lamb that you want, but lamb shanks or leg of lamb are the best for this. You could also use beef if you want. It is traditionally made with beef, and I've already done a recipe with beef, and I will link it down below. But today we're using lamb, so we can just add a little bit more flavor. Lamb does tend to be very, very flavorful. I'm gonna begin by browning it in the Instant Pot for about 10 minutes or until it's nice and brown on both sides. You're gonna set the Instant Pot to the Saute feature, put a little bit of olive oil in there, maybe about 4 or 5 tablespoons, and do this in 2 batches because all of it is not gonna fit in at once. And if you put it in all together, what's gonna happen is it's gonna steam instead of brown. Make sure it gets nice and brown on both sides, take it out, put it in a bowl and put the next batch in. And do the same thing. And while that's happening, I have some shallots over here that I'm just gonna peel. You're gonna need about 24 shallots. If you can't find shallots and you have pearl onions instead, those are much smaller and they do take a little bit more work to peel just because they are smaller. You can use those instead. So what you just want to peel the external layer and then just get them in a small baking pan on in an even layer. I'm gonna roast these in the oven instead of frying these in the Instant Pot just so that we could save on time. You could do them in the Instant Pot if you're not in a hurry, and all of that flavor is just gonna end up in the stew. But this works too and it is gonna be flavorful. I'm just gonna drizzle the onions with a little bit of olive oil, maybe about 1/4 cup or so, and I'm gonna season them with a little bit of salt and pepper. And these are gonna bake at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 or 25 minutes or until they're nice and tender and golden. And that's just gonna happen while the stew is being made. So they're gonna be ready at the same time because they are gonna go in at the end. Okay, so the lamb is really nice and brown. You do want it to have that beautiful color and it's gonna create all those beautiful pan drippings. I'm gonna add the remaining lamb, the first batch in there. And usually the pot is deglazed with some wine, but I'm using some balsamic vinegar instead, about 2 tablespoons of it. And I'm also gonna add a cup of water. You can do chicken broth instead of the water, but I feel like the lamb already has the bones in here and it's gonna create such a nice broth that I don't wanna, mix flavors in here. Just move everything around to kind of loosen whatever stuck to the bottom of the pan. And then I have 4 garlic cloves that I've grated, if they would come out of this little container, or ramekin. And I don't know if I mentioned, but I did season the lamb on both sides very generously with some salt and some black pepper. Then you're gonna need about 25 to 30 ounces of pureed tomatoes. This is not tomato sauce, this is simply tomatoes that have been canned and just pureed so they're nice and smooth. And about 1 tablespoon of tomato paste to make it extra rich. A little pinch of crushed red pepper flakes, 2 bay leaves, 1 cinnamon stick, and over here I have about 10, you can put as many as you want, black peppercorns, and I have some allspice berries. You could throw in 2 or 3 cloves if you want to. This is supposed to be a very aromatic stew, so try not to leave these out. Then we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of honey. This honey is available in our shop, and this is from my Uncle Dimitri's bees in Crete. It's delicious thyme honey, and I've never tasted anything like it. So if you wanna check it out, head on over to the website and order some and try it yourself. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 more cup of water so we can have a nice broth going. I'm gonna put the lid on and set it to seal. Then I'm just gonna set the pressure cooker to pressure cook on high for 25 minutes. Then I'm gonna let it naturally release for about 10-15 minutes and then release whatever pressure is left by opening the vent. In the meantime, I'm gonna cook the shallots, clean up a little bit, and then we're gonna move on to the next step. So I let it naturally release for 10 minutes instead of the 15 that are preferable, just because I'm doing the videos and I have another one that I'm waiting to finish up and I just don't have time. But if you wait the extra 5-10 minutes and let it naturally release, you'll have less stuff spraying out all over the place, which is not fun to clean up. But then I just opened up the vent and let the rest of the pressure naturally release. I opened it up, and then you just want to give it a nice mix. Add the shallots in there and then set it to the saute feature for about 10-15 minutes, so that way the stew can thicken up and it can also just get all that lovely sweetness from the shallots, and it's just going to taste so good. Taste it and see if it needs more salt or more pepper. I did go ahead and I added a teaspoon of dried oregano. It's sauteing now for a little bit. And once it's done, it's going to be ready to serve. Keep in mind that it is going to thicken more as it sits, but you do want this to be a nice, rich, hearty, thick stew. And I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it's done. So just like that, the stew is ready. You're going to want to take out the bay leaves and the cinnamon stick. And if you find the little allspice berries and the black peppercorns, you can take those out, but don't go looking for them, so that way you don't tear apart the onions. You want them to hold their shape. The onion should be nice and soft. The meat should be tender and almost falling apart. That's just the way I like it. And the sauce should be nice and thick. It is time for the taste test. So delicious. The onions are nice and sweet and tender and soft. The meat is so good, and there's none of that gaminess in it. If you cook lamb properly, it comes out very delicious, and I think you're gonna love it. This is the perfect stew for a nice cold winter's day. All the warm flavors in them are just gonna make you feel so nice and cozy inside. This is a classic Greek stew. This is my favorite growing up as a kid. It was actually my favorite meal, and I think it might still be. It's a tie between this and cabbage rolls. They're just soothe my soul, take me back to childhood. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you want to learn how to make the beef or the chicken version, click over here and I'll see you right over there. Yes, Ess?